Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast, episode number 110.
Yes.
No more 1-0s, so it doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same. But we're here, episode 110, for the first ever MMA Weekend Preview show.
Whoa, I'm flinging around stuff in here.
Now, everybody calm down.
Chill out. We're going to explain.
Yeah, we're going to explain.
Well, Noah's going to explain.
So what we're kind of doing here is this isn't really going to change. Like, it's going to come off like a drastic change, but I assure you guys that as far as the content you'll be getting, it's just going to be a better way to kind of present the same information,
yes,
if you will. So we made a change a while back. We spent like the first month or so as a UFC podcast, and then we transitioned into being an MMA podcast. And early on, it's just growing pains, right? So we have admitted that we've pretty much have only watched up until that point UFC content.
Yeah.
So it's been an adjustment to try to pick up Bellator, PFL, ONE FC, Ryzen, like all these.
At least at a close level to the UFC.
Yeah, at least to like try to get it to where it makes sense that we're an MMA podcast instead of just being UFC still. And truthfully, like it's you guys recognize it. You look at the content up until this point. Every Friday is a preview for a UFC card. If a UFC card is not happening that weekend, we have not recorded an episode, and the same with the recaps. So it's obvious that like our content still very much is intertwined with the UFC, even if we added on, a Bellator fight announcement or a preview of a Bellator fight or a PFL fight into the news segment or whatever.
Yeah.
So what we're doing here is we're just kind of giving everything its own shine by kind of segmentizing everything, and you'll see how it works once we actually do it because we're implementing it in this episode. And this is kind of a rough go of things because this is a change that we're kind of sprung it on Dom. I sprung it on Dom today, so it'll
bear with us for this.
Yeah, for this one, but it's going to look a lot cleaner moving forward. We'll clean up some things, see how it goes, but all in all, segmentizing everything, kind of giving everything its own headline. Fight announcements, like the news is still going to be kind of the same, but then some of those, like what we call the rest of the news, that's going to kind of give its own shine. So like, for example, if we talked about on a week, like about Dana White interview when he said something, rather than having that in the news, we would just transition from the news to, it would have a headline like Dana White talks about fighter pay, whatever it is. And then we transition from that to a Bellator fight or a UFC fight, whatever it is. I guess the biggest change here is we're not limiting ourselves to just talking about these 5 or 6 main card UFC fights as a preview or recap. We're talking about the fights we want to talk about, the fights that you guys want us to talk about, and we're not going to waste your time by talking about fights that we are not ourselves interested in. There are other places that you might be able to find that, but it would be kind of a betrayal to ourselves to pretend like we're that interested in a certain fight if we're not. And you'll get a gist of it. But I just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork here so nobody's too confused as we get in. But before we kind of kick this off, Dom, I got to know, how was your week?
My week, we're coming to the close of, we're halfway through June already. It's crazy, man, but it's been a good week. Soaked up a lot of sun this week. I don't know. This light makes me look a little more pale. Maybe you're seeing some red.
I still see it a little bit. We'll see it'll shine off you.
Hung out with at my uncle's pool, did some more golfing. We were actually out on the lake today, the first time in forever that I've had a chance to go out. So before I started recording with you, we were out there, had a good time. So it's just been a really good week, kind of hanging out with the family, creating some summer memories, quote unquote, all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's been a good week, man. What about you?
Same old, man. I'm coming home tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I might see you.
Yeah, Father's Day. Activities are going on, so I know tomorrow I got to go into the office tomorrow first thing. So when I get off at 4:30, I'm going to go straight home back to old Carlisle, and I'm going to stay with my dad Friday night. He wants to go to a bar and get trashed. So Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just gonna let you know. I consider myself to be a pretty good drinker. I feel like I can really throw them back. As the kids say.
But then there's Todd.
But then there is my dad, who pretty much every time we've ever drank together has gotten me to puke. So
he kicks your ass.
He really does, man. He does it every time. Now I did get him last time. He came to my turf. He came to BG, and I got him to basically be like a zombie leaving the bar. So that was, fireball shots are what did him that time. So I'm gonna come lock and loaded this time.
Yeah.
Regardless, Saturday, my mom's dad is we're having my mom's family's coming over to our house for like a grill out, and it's all for her dad. So it'll be good to see him. Saturday night, hopefully, I'll be coming to your place to watch the fights.
I'll be waiting.
And then Sunday, take Dad out to dinner. So it'll be nice to be home. I probably won't stay past Sunday or maybe Monday or so. So it'll be a short trip, but, always nice to just kind of catch in or check up on everybody,
Yeah, for sure.
And quick question, since I might be seeing you Saturday.
Yeah.
Did the Salih pool get built yet?
Delayed due to weather. Today, the day we're recording this, we were supposed to have a hole in the ground. So it has been delayed probably a week or so, which is unfortunate.
So I've been telling Dom for weeks at this point. I said I'm going to come over and I'm just going to jump in the pool.
Jump right in from the deck.
Yeah, off the second story, whatever. And I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm a pretty large person, so it would not be a silent jump.
Oh, it would be an absolute showcase of your abilities. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'll have to delay that for your next trip back.
Yeah, 100%. But I think we'll just go ahead and transition into today's edition of the news.
The news.
We start with a sad one for this otherwise triumphant episode. Yes. Max Holloway, he's blessed, but in this case,
not so blessed.
He's upset.
Yeah.
He's out of his July 17th main event with Yair Rodriguez due to an injury. The UFC looking to rebook this fight, so it's kind of nice to know we have some direction there rather than is Yair Rodriguez going to get a late replacement or whatever. Yeah. This sucks.
It sucks. We talked about it on Wednesday, how excited we were for it.
I know. And I guess my question here, obviously it sucks that this fight's not happening on July 17th. And we don't know how severe this injury is as of this recording.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a lot of speculation, forewarning. But if this ends up being like a significant layoff for Max Holloway, which if they're rebooking it, hopefully it's not. But if it is, did Max Holloway kind of screw himself by taking this fight? Because the UFC want this fight to happen at this point. But what if he's not ready to go till like the end of the year?
Right.
But by that point, he should be looking at a potential title fight with the winner of Volkanovski Ortega. So the whole reason he's kind of stuck with this Yair Rodriguez fight is because of the timing of him fighting in January, and then their fight, the title fight, got delayed due to COVID, and then the Ultimate Fighter. So, Max Holloway, hopefully this isn't a long-term injury, right? Because otherwise he might be screwed for a while.
Yeah, that would be awful, man. And for even on the flip side for Yair, a guy that's been out for so long anyway, getting himself into trouble with USADA and all that, whatever. But now he was finally going to come back, get that number one contender fight, and he doesn't even get it. So now he's even kind of screwed where he just sits in lingo because they're not just going to give him a title fight. He gets into too much stuff goes on behind the scenes with Yair that we don't even know about, I'm sure. They're not just going to give him the shot because Max is injured.
Yeah, let's put it like this. He doesn't come off like the easiest guy to work with.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. This injury to Max, it sucks. I got a Max Holloway hoodie right there in the closet I'll be wearing on this podcast. But if you're Ige and Korean Zombie, we're going to obviously talk about it's the main event of UFC Vegas 29. You got a lot more incentive all of a sudden for your main event this Saturday. So,
I like that.
That. Man, it's all bad at the end of the day for Yair and Max. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. It's undisclosed, quote unquote, for now. But a guy that's been so durable throughout his career and known for that, to see him pull out with an injury, it's like, this is strange. So hopefully it's nothing too serious. Best of luck to Max and his recovery. And, of course, for Yair, I don't know what to tell you, actually.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck
when the fight happens.
Because we can't even bring in Zabit now because he's going through stuff. So
I guess if they're looking to rebook it, that makes me think that
maybe it's not too bad.
This is a minor enough injury to where maybe it's a month or two setback, which, if anything, kind of helps Max in his timing because then he'll be lined pretty much right up with the title fight.
Yeah, because the title fight's in September.
And obviously he has to win. And I don't want to pretend like Yair Rodriguez is some slouch. I'm just saying if he wins, like I'm sure he's expecting to, it would make sense at that point to book him in a title fight to line up perfectly.
Exactly.
Moving on from there, 2 weeks later on July 31st, this was a weird one.
Came out of nowhere.
Because we talked about our new flyweight champion, Brandon Moreno, on Monday and Wednesday, and we both had one name in mind as like the next guy up.
Yeah.
And that was Askar Askarov, but little did we know, under our noses, the UFC booked him in a title eliminator, I would assume, with number 4 Alex Perez. So this is a weird one, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love the fight. I just thought he was going to get a title fight next.
It's a great fight. Both guys that are very talented on the ground.
Yeah.
Alex Perez has some really good leg kicks. You know, he worked that. He put on a showcase against, I believe, Pantoja with the leg kicks. But that's actually going to be – I'll let you give your thoughts on the fight. But Pantoja, who's sitting here without a matchup right now, just to be clear, has a win over Brandon Moreno in his UFC career. Are the UFC going to potentially book Brandon Moreno, Alexandre Pantoja?
I wouldn't be upset after that performance he just had in his last fight with Manel Kape. That's for sure.
That's true.
In terms of Askar versus Perez, Askar's going to grind it out, look to grind it out. He's known for that grapple-heavy approach. He looked amazing in that fight against Joseph Benavidez. And for Perez, he's super well-rounded. He's kind of can get the job done anywhere the fight takes place. But again, a guy like Askarov has that next level grappling, you know, that Habib-style grappling, that Mavzar Evloev type grappling.
Yes, he does.
So Perez is going to want to probably keep this on the feet. He's a very powerful guy, as you mentioned, has stopped fights via leg kicks. So it should be a good fight. You would think title eliminator because if you're Perez, it's not Davison that you would challenge for the belt now. It would be Moreno. So, and obviously Askar, he should already be fighting for a title. So if he wins this, it's definitely got to be a title next, surely, for him. So I like what you mentioned about Pantoja, though, kind of just waiting silently in the wings. So, yeah, it's a good fight, though. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, if anything, this is just making it more clear to me that Davison should not get an immediate rematch for this title.
No.
I know that that's maybe the best for business, if you want to talk about money-wise or whatever, but I just think when you have someone like Pantoja who's waiting, who has a win over Moreno. And then you got Askarov and Perez who are about to battle it out at the end of July.
Yeah.
So really they're fighting for the front of the line there. So, I mean, when you have two potential contenders coming out at the end of the summer, I don't think Davison doesn't need that fight right now. And he needs to go up 10 pounds. He's just he's too big for this division.
Exactly.
Anyways, we're going to pivot to some Bellator news. We had two big fights, I would assume, our main event and co-main event for Bellator 263 happening the same day on July 31st. Co-main event, though, title eliminator, presumably. The winner looking like they'll be the first title defense for Mr. Sergio Pettis. Number 3, Magomed Magomedov versus number 4, Rafayan Stotts. You guys can correct me.
You're the name guy, remember?
Yeah. But this is a big one for us.
Oh, yeah.
We've been following Magomedov since he got signed.
We've talked about him as a free agent. Yeah.
This is only his third Bellator fight. Stotts has got 4 Bellator fights as of now, so it'd be number 5 for him. These guys come in with a combined 34-2 record.
That's insane.
Both with their individual losses being the very notable UFC opponents.
Yeah.
Magomedov with Jan and vice versa.
Yeah, true.
Stotts got knocked out by Davalishvili, who we'll be talking about in a little bit. So both guys that are very good grapplers. We've seen Magomedov put on a showcase.
Yeah, man.
He's obviously, since we've talked about him on here, he's been a guy we've actually went out of our way to watch even early on in this podcast. While for Stotts, maybe not the guy that maybe he doesn't have quite the hype that Magomedov does, but he's a dangerous opponent.
For sure.
I think this fight is really a toss-up, and anybody who convinces himself otherwise might be disappointed.
Crazy.
You might be disappointed.
This should literally, as you said, probably a number one contender fight for the title at the newly crowned champ, Sergio Pettis, at 135 pounds. That's a very exciting fight. Sometimes those grappler versus grappler matchups can be just as exciting, whether they're on the feet or if they're going through all the crazy grappling transitions. That's going to be a banger of a co-main event.
Yeah, if Stotts can keep that fight off the ground, like if he can stay off his back, I actually would maybe favor him in the stand-up.
Yeah.
So that's where that fight gets really interesting, in my opinion. But the main event for Bellator 263, it's the finals.
The Grand Prix comes to a close.
The featherweight Grand Prix finale. Patricio Pitbull defends his Bellator featherweight title against the rightful contender, the rightful number one, AJ McKee.
Yep.
Dominic, we've said this a couple times. This is Bellator's like Stipe and DC3.
Yeah, this is one of their biggest fights in a long time.
It might not, I don't know what it's going to do like numbers wise, but in terms of competition, in terms of the reasons we love this sport, this might be their biggest title fight they've ever had.
Yep, I agree.
And I'm so on board with this because if AJ McKee wins this fight, you're talking about a superstar in the making, which is something Bellator has drastically been looking for. A guy who didn't already come to them as a star from the UFC, or a guy like Kimbo Slice who never really quite had the fighting prowess to back up his personality and stuff. But a guy like AJ McKee with the win here becomes, I think, a superstar. Patricio Pitbull, don't get me wrong, a star in his own right, probably the best fighter in Bellator history.
Oh, yeah.
But it's clear to me that
his biggest challenge is right here.
Yes.
AJ McKee.
This fight is incredible, I think.
And you can't really have two more well-rounded fighters on that whole Bellator roster than these two guys right here. Exactly. I mean, this title fight is nuts.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Like the fact that we are over the hill excited for a Bellator main event.
Saying a lot.
You know, this isn't even just like because we're doing a podcast and we got to talk about like all these promotions. No, this is
legit
legitimate excitement, which is not something that even if we weren't doing this podcast, I think we would be super excited about this main event.
And I would probably be talking about it with you right now.
Yeah, and that's something that I think I can say we've never really had in our years of watching together.
Yeah.
We've never gotten over the hill excited about a Bellator fight.
Yeah.
And here they got something. So
I mean, this is literally a fight I would have people come over for.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. And hopefully, and like when you stack it with the co-main, like Magomedov and Stotts, shout out Bellator, man. They're doing some really good things right now. A lot of their cards have been actually kind of killers. So hopefully the trail of good luck continues for them and these fights live up. I can't wait to watch them.
Yeah, 2021 is the great year for Bellator.
A week after that, UFC 265 is taking place. Going to be in Texas.
Oh, it is? This is Nunes versus Pena.
I believe Dana said fact check me on this, people. I believe they're going back to Texas. I think that's what Dana made clear because they've been looking to try to get Ngannou Lewis on there and Lewis from Texas. So the fights that have been announced for this card, though, we start with a rematch, Tisha Torres versus Angela Hill. I'm very excited for this fight because Torres looks to be just
career resurgence.
Yeah, she looks to be re-energized, re-motivated, whatever you want to call it.
3 or 4 in a row.
She looks very good right now, a lot better than even she did in the first fight with Angela Hill. And I think you can say the same for Hill. Angela Hill, even if her record doesn't say it, we talk about this a lot. Even if her record doesn't say it, she's always she's outperforming her expectations.
Her fights are always fantastic.
She's always in great fights. That fight with Michelle Watterson, she technically lost, but it was so close. I mean, talk about this woman's, I don't know how many split decision losses she has, but as far as just how many decision losses she has that are so close, there's nobody else that compares.
Oh, no, not close.
So her record doesn't tell the full story. And this is a fight that she lost the first time.
Yeah.
And both women come in here super improved, super motivated. I think this is a really fun fight. I don't know if it'll sneak on to the main card, but I would like to see it on there. And I just think that it's a very fun fight. Unfortunately, your girl Amanda Ribas, it looks like they have pivoted away from her and Angela Hill, which if you want to elaborate on maybe what that means for Ribas and her recovery, but what do you think about this fight overall?
I think the fight in general, this was supposed to happen already earlier this year. Fell through. Angela Hill goes on to fight someone else. Tisha goes on to fight someone else, as they do. Angela Hill fights like 18 times a year anyway. Then we know Hill was supposed to fight Ribas. That fight fell through due to Amanda testing positive for COVID. Obviously, shout out to Amanda Ribas, my girl. Huge fan of her. Hopefully she gets rested up. Apparently maybe COVID hit her a little worse, or maybe the traveling maybe played a factor, something like that. But Hill always wanting to fight. Tisha on a resurgence. This is a fantastic top 15 ranked matchup here. Winner, obviously, Tisha might already be top 10. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. Angela Hill always on the cusp of cracking in. It should be a fun fight. Like you said, maybe main card, maybe prelims, but I'm sure it'll deliver no matter what, because Tisha's last performance may have been her best performance of her professional career. And Hill, coming off of another win, but had the fight of the year contender with Watterson last year. It's going to be a good fight.
That's a great way to kind of really paint the picture there for those two, is that they're both coming off of just fantastic performances, and it just speaks to kind of where mentally they are, and it's showing in their actual performances too.
Yeah, and you know what I can guarantee will be on the main card, Noah? this next fight you're about to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead and introduce it.
Oh, I stole your thunder. I'm sorry. I saw it up there. I'm like,
this is our show. So
this is our show.
So you take it.
Listen, Vicente Luque, Michael Chiesa, number 5, number 6, striker grappler. But even though Luque is a stud on the ground, don't you forget about it. Mm-hmm. This is the fight. This is the fight. Two guys, by the way, that depending on how they win, could very well hopscotch everybody in front of them and fight Kamaru Usman, because both are fresh matchups for the champion. I love everything about this fight. It caught me off guard for whatever reason, but it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, you're a little right about that. I was definitely caught a little off guard. I thought maybe these two would hold out just to see kind of where, because Usman, Colby has not technically been booked as of now. And then you had Leon it was a good win over Nate Diaz, but, obviously I spoke a little bit on Monday about, it was a win, but like
the last minute didn't help his case.
The poor guy just like with 1 minute after a 24-minute showcase, that last minute might have been enough to like prevent him from really being able to just wait it out.
Well, and Usman was a guy that had mentioned Chiesa as like maybe he should be next. He's undefeated at welterweight 4-0. And Ali was talking about it and stuff.
Ali said that. He mentioned Luque as well.
Yeah.
I know we talked about that in This or That. I think I gave you those two as well. This fight, I think, is really good on paper. And these are two guys that quietly rose to the top of the heap here at welterweight. Chiesa, kind of a fixture at this point of the top 10. Mm-hmm. He's always been kind of that back half guy that we spoke about this when he fought Neil Magny, where could never quite get over the hump. That's just been his problem. And he does look really good in this division, which I think that is a big part of his success. Is that
155 was too much of a cut.
Yeah, it's too much of a cut. 170 he looks a lot better at. For Luque, he definitely quietly jumped up here. I mean, that win over Tyron Woodley,
killer, man.
What a one-round fight that was. I know Tyron Woodley, not the same guy he was when he was champion, but that was the best Tyron Woodley.
He took out Tyron Woodley.
That was the best Tyron Woodley we had seen since he lost the belt.
Yeah.
And Vicente got him out of there in a round. Choked him out, by the way.
Yeah.
This fight's awesome. I'm glad that the two guys that are kind of the two dark horses in this division right now just said, all right, the rest of these guys, the rest of these guys, they're all holding out, hoping for Usman to give them a chance. We're just going to fight each other, and we're just going to see who's next.
Exactly.
Because I really do believe there's a good chance the winner of this fight,
I think so,
gets a title shot. I really
do. Yeah.
A lot of it's going to be timing, but
True.
we'll see if Usman fights Colby or where Leon fits in.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think that adds some stakes to this fight, knowing.
Oh yeah.
And then next up, we're heading a month later.
The big boys.
UFC 266 happening September 25th. And let me just say, I don't want to shit on these two because they're good fighters. I'm just glad this isn't a fight night headliner. We got Curtis Blades versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. No disrespect to you two. Rozenstruik coming off a very good performance against Augusto Sakai. Curtis Blades was having a really good performance against Derek Lewis, but
then the uppercut happened.
The one-shot power. But otherwise, that looked like it might have been a really fun fight if it had continued, especially for Blades, who typically gets kind of labeled as a bit of a boring fighter. So jokes aside about that, but I'm glad to see these guys getting a chance to shine here on a pay-per-view main card. And the fight itself, I will say, might not be the most fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because Rozenstruik's ground game is green, to say the least. Not that he's been there a lot,
but we're talking Curtis Blades here.
Yeah, and this is Curtis Blades, who is just as good as they come as a wrestler.
The best all-around wrestler in the
I'm pretty sure, unless I haven't seen where maybe he signed a new contract, this is the last fight of his deal with the UFC.
Ooh.
So you got a guy that's coming in here probably very motivated to either, one, earn a nice check with the UFC to come back, or to kind of showcase his skill set to the other promotions.
Going into free agency.
Watching. Yeah. So this is a guy that's probably going to be looking to maybe even get a finish here. And Rozenstruik, he looked good against Sakai. He's looked good outside of his two high-profile losses, which was
one shouldn't even count because it was 20 seconds.
The 20-second KO to Ngannou, and then that kind of
Ngannou fight was the one.
Yeah, that's a bit of a slog, But these are starting to look more and more,
outliers.
Especially the Gane one. It looks more and more like an outlier because you look at what he did to like Junior Dos Santos. He steamrolled him, and then against Sakai, I know we're not big on Sakai, but really, I mean, Sakai is at least somewhat durable. I mean, he went 4 or 5 rounds with Alistair Overeem.
Yeah,
and Rozenstruik got him out of there in a round. So.
And it was all Rozenstruik in that fight too. The whole 5 minutes was. It's a striker versus grappler. It's a huge test for both guys. Of course, curious how that'll play out.
Yeah, and do you think that I'm maybe underestimating this fight, or do you have similar sentiments?
No, I see the sentiment. It could be really fun with a stoppage, or it could be really long, drawn out. We've seen Blades do it with other guys. Why couldn't he do it here with Rozenstruik? And if Rozenstruik comes out and is hesitant on the feet, which I don't think he will be after what we just saw, it could definitely turn into a dull bout. But I'd like to at least stay on the positive side for now, a few months out. So
no, it's definitely.
I see it.
It's an important fight.
Yes,
even if, and I don't know if you want to go into this a little bit, the winner is still probably going to be in a pretty awkward spot for the time being. It's kind of just a win to be like, okay, I'm at least in front of this guy.
Yeah.
Between these two. It's like, okay, I'm at least in front of Rozenstruik, or I'm at least in front of Blades. But then you got Ngannou as champion, who has beat both of these guys. And then you got Stipe, John Jones. It's an awkward front pack. And then you got Gane and Volkov, who I think might jump in front of them, depending on especially if Gane wins. I think there's a good chance Gane might be jumping in front of these two. But
I'll say, if you're Rozenstruik, for Blades, you're in a bad spot because both guys fighting for the belt next is Ngannou and Lewis, and they both have beat you combined 3 times. But for Rozenstruik, you're really rooting for Derek Lewis because if Lewis can beat Ngannou, Rozenstruik, if he puts on a impressive performance against Blades, then we could be talking a fresh matchup, maybe, just maybe.
Yeah, good point. The other fight announced for this UFC 266 card, Marlon Moraes.
I love this fight.
I love this fight, but man, Marlon Moraes, this guy's just not getting any easy bouts here.
No.
And he's going up against Merab Dvalishvili. We've documented really the life cycle of this podcast has showcased Marlon Moraes' kind of struggles, his downfall, if you will.
And damn near Merab's rise.
And Merab's rise for sure.
Last few fights.
Yeah, that win over John Dodson was the very first pay-per-view we went over. So
Yeah.
kind of crazy how far we've come there. But this fight, you get a guy in Marlon Moraes who his chin has just not been holding up his last few fights. He gets crazy spinning wheel kick knocked out by Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah.
And then you got the Rob Font fight where early takedown success didn't stick, and he kind of just he got put out with not really the most powerful of punches.
Right.
And then before that, he had a split decision, I think, or maybe it was a unanimous win over Jose Aldo. But whether you thought he won or not, just not the most convincing performance in the world. And then before that was when he lost to Henry Cejudo.
It's a different Marlon ever since he lost to Cejudo.
It is. And here he goes up against Valishvili, who I think I can at least say with some confidence, and I could be proven wrong about this, that I don't think Merab is going to be able to knock out Marlon Moraes.
Right.
At least, based on his skill set, he shouldn't be too worried about Merab being able to knock him out. Where Merab does his work is in the grappling, and he's just such a mauler there.
Grinder, man.
And you saw Moraes, it looked like in the Rob Font fight, he was looking to kind of try to, for a while there, he had been this like guy that would just not like this power puncher of a bantamweight, essentially.
Yeah.
Walk you down, knock you out. Just a scary individual. And then his chin hasn't held up. And you saw in the Font fight, it looked like he was maybe starting to try to
come out to grapple.
Maybe
had the early takedown too.
Much in a weird way, him and Cody Garbrandt appear to be kind of in similar spots where they both against Rob Font, they tried to really put on more grappling. And maybe that would be kind of the blueprint moving forward for them since their chins haven't always held up. But now you're going up against Valishvili, who
can't grapple against this guy.
So
good luck if you try.
So if you keep the fight standing, good, because you should have an edge in the stand-up, especially power-wise.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But you're going up against a guy who's hard to put away. He's hard to knock out. And, if he lands even a soft jab, is Marlon Moraes just not – is his chin not going to be able to hold up? I mean, the punch by Font was it was like the slightest of jabs that just kind of knocked him down. That's what worries me.
Yeah, and if momentum is any indicator, I mean, Merab really riding a high right now. He's on a tear, a huge win streak, getting his biggest chance. I mean, they're catapulting him into a former title challenger here against Marlon Moraes. I think he's still ranked number 6. Yeah. So if Merab wins here, it clearly shows the ceiling that the UFC believes he has, and I agree. I think this guy can make it all the way to that title shot, and he's just going to keep getting better too. I mean, you look at the camp he trains with, Aljamain Sterling, Ray Longo up there. So as much as I hate to say it, because I do love Marlon, a fan favorite guy, the momentum, it's surely on Davalishvili's side right now.
I think we do a good job of kind of evaluating momentum. Mm-hmm. Some people might think it's a bit overstated or maybe even undervalued, but I look at kind of how we value. I mean, I think we look at it very much at face value. Moraes has lost 3 of his last 4. Valishvili is probably won. I don't know what his winning streak is.
True, at least 5 or 6.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question that mentally that's got to play a factor. It's just got to. If you look at us, if you think if we were in their situations, you would be less confident if you're the guy who's lost 3 of his last 4, especially if you're getting knocked out like Marlon unfortunately has, versus if you're Merab, who you're pretty much 30-27 everybody right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious who's going to be more confident. It's just, can Marlon Moraes kind of hone in, kind of put that all aside, and really take a step backwards, I guess, if you will, into what he used to be, what got him to the dance, right?
Exactly.
But that's going to otherwise wrap it up for today's edition of The News. So let's get into our headlines here, Dominic.
A couple headlines. Well, one headline, I suppose.
I know this one's going to be interesting for you. So, teaching an old dog new tricks, and that's because we are talking about Anderson the Spider Silva.
Who is talked about him on Wednesday, too.
Yes, we did. And he is returning to boxing this weekend, this Saturday, for the first time since 2006 in a bout with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Tongue twister.
Whose dad is the main event, by the way, at 58
Yes.
years old.
Yeah, we love boxing right now.
So obviously this is weird because we don't talk about a lot of boxing on here. But when it's Anderson Silva, who you said on Wednesday, your favorite fighter of all time.
I know, and I still don't want to talk about it. Noah made me do this.
I got to get your thoughts on not only this fight, because we know it's just it's a weird kind of, it's in this weird mold of all these boxing fights going on right now where it's a lot of it's the celebrity weird boxing, weird thriller stuff. You can throw this in there too with like the Tyson, Holyfield, all this stuff. So not necessarily like what your thoughts are on this fight, but Anderson Silva seems so excited about this opportunity. Is this where we see him now at 45, 46, just kind of doing these high-profiled but otherwise kind of boxing fights, or are we ever going to see him return to MMA with maybe a ONE FC or a Ryzen or someone like that?
I feel like he is done with MMA. I truly do believe that. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Anderson Silva has been talking about boxing for years and years and years. I mean, this was a huge thing. When he was on a tear in the UFC on that huge win streak, they always had talked about him versus Roy Jones Jr. Yeah. That was the fight that everyone wanted to happen, and it never accumulated to anything. So I'm happy for Silva and one end that he gets to go and finally do what he's wanted to do for so many years. I respect him for that. The competitive fire is still there. I respect it. But you're 45 years old. Your chin has shown to have some issues lately. I know it's in 4-ounce gloves. It's an MMA fight. I get it. But when you're fighting another guy here in Cesar Chavez Jr., who's a super experienced boxer, it just worries me to the extent that I just don't want to see the guy take punishment that doesn't need to be taken. He's a legend of not just MMA, but combat sports. That's how big Anderson Silva is. So if he comes out here and puts on a great show, I guess I can eat my words a little bit. I don't doubt that he's going to come out and look bad. I think he will show some things. I mean, this is one of the best strikers we've ever seen in the UFC and in combat sports. But it's at the end of the day, there's no kicks, there's no elbows, there's no clinch. This is a boxing match. So I don't know, man. Part of me is kind of happy that he still wants to go out there and prove something. Part of me is like, I'm really hesitant to see him go out there and maybe get hurt. I don't know. Overall, I just don't really like it. I stopped.
I get it. It's like you kind of.
It's a love-hate.
Personally, you don't like it. Yeah. But who are you kind of to tell someone when it's their time or when they need to stop?
If you feel like you got it in you, then go do it, I guess.
I mean, my only thing with this specific fight is that his opponent, Chavez Jr., is, I believe, 10 years younger than him. Yeah. And 60-5, I want to say, as a pro boxer. I mean,
a lot of experience.
It's a lot of experience. And, like, not that Chavez Jr., he's not his dad. He's not quite one of the best boxers of all time or anything.
But, right.
He's still just a very experienced guy. He's done it. I mean, 60 wins. That I don't care who you're boxing. It's still impressive. And I don't know. Anderson Silva, I believe, is 1-1 as a boxer. Last boxed in 2006, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's been all MMA ever since.
I guess I'll be curious to see how he looks, and if he does look okay, then I mean I'm not gonna judge, or I guess I'm not gonna if we have to have this conversation again in 6 or 8 months because he's boxing somebody else. But if he looks good here, I probably won't even address it. I'll probably just be like, you know what, do your thing, Silva. We're not gonna sit here and bitch and moan about it.
Right.
As long as he's, making some money and doing what he wants to do. He does seem very excited about it. So
yeah, genuinely happy. You can see
which
it.
I like to see that for him,
Yeah.
What's next?
That's it. I guess.
Yes, but
that's it for all the news is done.
Yeah, I meant what's next? Like, what's the next headline?
Oh.
Just go ahead and put it up.
Let there be blood, my friend.
Let there be blood. So our main event for UFC Vegas 29 is a big fight at featherweight the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung, makes his long-awaited return. He's going up against a very hungry challenger,
Ige right
Dan 50K Ige. Dominic, break it down for these two.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got 2 top 10 featherweights looking to rise to the occasion. Number 4 ranked Korean Zombie. Number 8 ranked Dan Ige. Korean Zombie, you've probably heard of him. If you haven't, here's a little rundown. He's 16-6, 6-3 in the UFC. He's got 6 KO TKOs, 8 submissions. That's 14 out of 16, 10 of which have came in the first round. Right now in 2021, he is now 34 years old. He's 5 feet 7 inches tall with a 72-inch reach. In the blue corner, we've got Dan Ige, 15 wins, 3 losses, 7-2 in the UFC. Got his contract off of the Contender Series, 1-0 there. 4 KO TKOs, 5 submissions, 6 of those 9 in the first round. The younger of the two coming in here at 29 years old, he's also 5'7", and he has a 71-inch reach. So, Noah, we know that this fight's going to be brutal. We know it's going to be violent. It's a fan-friendly fight if I've ever seen one. I mean, for God's sake, we made the title of this headline, Let There Be Blood, for a reason. Why did we do that?
Yeah, I mean, these are two guys that they always come to put on a good show. Ige, really the last year, this guy has basically took off.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really went for it. He had that win over Edson Barboza, which was very, we both, I think, thought Barboza won the fight. But you look at what Barboza's doing right now, and it's like the fact that he was in a close enough fight with him, it's like, okay, both these guys are just really good.
Yeah.
And then he follows that up by jumping into a main event spot with Calvin Kattar, loses that fight, but I think overall it was a good learning experience from him because and for the fans to see this guy who for 5 rounds, I mean, he took a lot of damage in that fight, but just never was out of it. Even when he lost like 4 rounds to 1 or something like that. But he was never quite out of the fight. He was always in there, landing some good shots on Kattar. And then after that 18-second knockout.
Right.
I mean, come on, man. That's
perfect.
A fight that I thought he might lose.
Gavin Tucker going into that fight was undefeated.
Gavin Tucker is a very good prospect. At least I guess you can still call him that. And I really thought there was a good chance Gavin Tucker might pounce on the opportunity. But Ige puts him away in 18 seconds, man.
Unreal.
So this is another fight where we talked about just a little bit ago, momentum. Ige is red hot right now.
Yep.
Obviously, the UFC got to love this guy because he is really kind of leading the charge for these veterans of the Tuesday Night Contender. Dana White's got to be hoping that one of these guys that comes off the Contender fights for a belt, wins a title, because that just helps the branding of the show. Same with the Ultimate Fighter when like Forrest Griffin won a title, stuff like that. It helps. It lends itself to better recruitment for that show and better ratings, all that.
All of it.
So they love Ige, but they also love Korean Zombie because this guy's got to have one of the most fan-friendliest styles there is. He's been doing it for so long, yet
little fights, it seems.
Well,
these guys have the same amount of UFC fights.
I believe he had a 4-year hiatus because he had
mandatory military service.
Yeah, so that took out a big chunk of his growth. But to see him come back, and his return bout was against Renato Moicano, who at that time was one of the bigger prospects in the division, puts him away with ease. And he's not slowed down up until the big one was against Brian Ortega in October, I want to say. That was a fight we were both thinking this is a fight of the year type fight.
Yeah.
And Ortega just
like performance of the year.
Yeah. I mean, just outclassed him for 5 rounds. And in some ways, as good of a performance as it was for Ortega, I was equally as disappointed
with how the Zombie
looked in that fight. And I guess that's where I stand right now. It's Korean Zombie is 34. You said
34. Yep.
So he's not getting any younger. I mean, we're a little bit past our prime at this point, but it's still, he's still really good. But but he's going up against Ige, who is just at probably the best we're going to see of Ige potentially. I don't know. He could keep – I mean, I'm sure he's going to keep improving, but like as far as putting it all together, momentum, the UFC being behind him, it feels like this is his time.
Yeah.
Can the Zombie overcome that? I'm sure he can, but I think it's an uphill battle for him right now. I really do.
Yeah, let me tell you, too, there's no chance this fight goes to the ground unless someone's ass is getting knocked out. This is going to be stand-up for as long as it lasts, back-and-forth battle. Ige, by the way, I got to mention it. Love this dude, by the way. I've been listening to every interview this week. There's some about Dan Ige. He's really pulling me in. And newly found dad strength, Noah. We can't slip that up in the podcast. This man is coming in with new powers, for crying out loud. So he's got that newly found motivation. It seems cliche to talk about these days, but we've seen Cowboy Cerrone, one of the best examples, when their newly found fatherhood finds them in their life. Look what Cowboy did. So it really is that extra sense of motivation to where I want to be a role model for my child. I want to put food on the table. I'm not letting you take this away from their future. And so I'm interested to see how Ige will come out and perform due to that. He's been in camp this whole time. He literally got the phone call to fight Zombie 2 days before his son was born, which is crazy. And then for Zombie, man, can he bounce back? A guy that's not getting younger, as you mentioned. Didn't really show us much in the fight against Ortega, but we know how talented this man is. One of the only twister submissions in UFC history, the first ever that had happened. So maybe the fight will go to the ground. Who am I to say? But, this fight, man, it's such an incredible main event. When this fight got announced, you just knew this is the fight to make. It makes all the sense in the world in terms of rankings, where their careers are going right now, and stylistically, it's beautiful chaos. No, I don't think we've said it in a few episodes. I'm throwing it out right now, baby. This main event has it written all over.
And honestly, if Ige wins this fight, I think he might really be in the driver's seat for a potential title shot. Again,
I'm telling you, with that Max thing, it's possible.
But that's the big I don't know what you would call it. I guess we're just unsure of kind of how that plays in. Yeah. How serious is the injury? How long are we talking before we see Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez? Because if it's long enough, it opens the door for one of these two to really, if they put on a big performance here, to really grab it. And this is the kind of fight that's on paper should be not necessarily a showcase like Ortega did against Zombie. This should be violence personified, and both of these guys should come out of this fight looking fantastic. But whoever gets their hand raised is ultimately going to be the one potentially fighting for a title next. And that adds to the stakes of this fight. I mean, it makes it a very important main event. Now, if we want to transition and talk about the rest of this card doesn't quite hold up to this fight.
There's this fight, and then those tier lists that are popular right now. This would be all the way up in all of these.
So, but to be expected. I mean, the main events obviously on these fight nights are always going to be a step up, but this one in particular, the rest of this card just doesn't quite hold up to that level of a main event. We'll start with the co-main event, and we got an experience just. What a crazy dropped in experience here. You got Alexei Oleinik, the ageless wonder, coming off back-to-back losses, I believe, going up against Sergey Spivak, the polar bear.
Wins.
A guy who I am personally a fan of, but I recognize he's had his faltering moments as well. I believe his 2 losses in the UFC are to Walt Harris and Marcin Tybura.
Yep.
Both of those, I mean, the Harris loss, at that time was surging. Marcin Tybura lost, though, looking a little better now that Tybura has been really moving forward in the rankings. I think this fight, it should be a fight that's fought pretty much completely on the ground. I mean, it's just based on these two styles, but I don't know. I can't say that on paper this fight comes off as a barn burner of a matchup or anything like that.
Not at all.
I knew you were going to have the same sentiment, but I guess if I had to ask you, Dominic, what plays a bigger factor in this matchup based on how you see it going in your head? Does the experience of Oleinik or the kind of youthful athleticism of Spivak play the bigger factor here?
I'm actually going with the latter. I think Sergey being the younger guy, more athletic guy, going to come in with more power. You don't want to grapple with Oleinik. No matter how good Spivak is on the ground, you don't want to do it because you're going to get choked out. He's going to squeeze your head off like he does those watermelons. You don't want no part of it. But if you're looking at Oleinik's last outing where he just got starched on the feet very quickly by Chris Daukaus, if you're Sergey, maybe you don't quite have the boxing like Daukaus does. He's a great prospect right now. But you want to come in and just get rid of him quick. He showed so many vulnerabilities in his last 2 outings, getting KO'd, TKO'd. You probably want to do it here if you're Sergey. For Oleinik, you know what he's going to come out and do. He's going to come out, try and grab you, put you against the fence, take you down, and then squeeze one of your limbs until you either tap or you go to sleep. That's what he does. It's crazy. He's literally got like 46 submission victories or something.
Now here's the real question. The real question here is,
oh boy,
Alexei Oleinik.
Yeah,
I didn't really even think of it. It just kind of dawned on me. This guy was our inaugural pilot episode. Was talking about him and Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we be rooting for this guy?
Well, considering it after his last outing, I called for him to retire. I find myself in an odd spot, huh?
It might be more of an old yeller where it's like you love him, but sometimes you just gotta
put him away. I don't know. I will say for Sergey, Alexei is ranked number 15. So Sergey's trying to crack into the rankings at heavyweight right now. That's very fresh, a lot of fresh names. So there's added motivation here for both guys because Oleinik, can you bounce back? Because if you lose here, it's probably going to be it. Let's be real. The UFC, unless you're Andrei Arlovsky, they don't keep around these heavyweight dudes that go on losing streaks. Arlovsky's an outlier, and he still wins today. So I'll cut your boy some slack. And if you're Sergey, you're trying to come in, crack the rankings, put on a performance against one of the biggest names that you fought, definitely would be your biggest win. Important fight for 2 opposite reasons. We say it all the time, and this is just another one of those cases right here.
I agree, and I do agree with your answer about Spivak's kind of youthful athleticism being a bigger factor here. It seems Oleinik has struggled a bit, like in his previous bout, with kind of the youth movement that's coming through the heavyweight division. I think another factor here is just what you kind of laid out. Oleinik is ranked number 15.
Yep.
But there's no way, right, in this guy's head that he thinks that he's ever fighting for a UFC title.
No, not now.
Spivak can still have those aspirations. So when you look at who's got more to gain from this matchup, Spivak has got to be licking his chops.
100%.
I have a chance to crack into the top 15 over against a guy who arguably isn't really a top 15 heavyweight at this point.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, where the rankings haven't quite removed him yet. So Spivak is just sitting there like he's already close, but he's got to be licking his chops like this is my way in. While for Oleinik, he really has nothing except to treat it like my career's on the line, I guess. But like even then, he should be kind of considering or contemplating retirement at this point. Cool. So I just struggle to find the motivation for Oleinik compared to Spivak here.
Well, and just an added piece too for Spivak, this is going to be his biggest fight ever in terms of he's a co-main event slot of a really good fight night headliner. It's a big deal for him. His biggest opportunity yet in the UFC. We'll see if he capitalizes.
Yeah, and I'm a little surprised this is the co-main because the next fight we're going to talk about is probably the fight I'm most excited for on this undercard.
Yeah,
Marlon Chito Vera going up against Davey Grant. Davey Grant, man, this is a guy that we've been kind of sleeping on through his last couple performances, but he has, throughout his career, never been the knockout artist, but these last 2 fights, he has put people to sleep.
2 straight bonuses, 3-fight win streak overall. This dude's riding hot.
And the fact that he's kind of putting that complete package together right now is very scary, and I think that's what the UFC – recognizing that, putting him up against a good test and Marlon Vera. Vera has become a much more well-known fighter, but for those of you that aren't aware, he was the guy that kind of took the Sugar Show off the air, at least
for now, momentarily, yeah.
But he that was arguably his first test in the UFC was against Marlon Vera.
And he looked great, Marlon Vera.
Yeah, so Sean O'Malley gets kind of derailed there.
Yeah.
Vera cracking into the top 15 because of that. After that, though, you see his loss to Jose Aldo, where, Aldo is a big step up, and that was a tough fight. But, it just showed to me that, like, okay, Vera's good, but is he top 10 in the division good? I'm not so sure about that.
Well, and that was a great fight until the third round.
Yeah, that's true.
But then it was just odd.
I agree it was a good fight, but it was no doubt for me that Aldo was winning pretty much the majority of it.
It still showed the levels of where Vera is.
That's what I'm saying is I look at Vera as that 11 to 15 range. If I don't know if he's still ranked or not.
Ranked 15.
Yeah. He's ranked 15. So Davey Grant, this is a great test for Davey. You're really capitalizing on the momentum for him if you're the UFC right here by putting him here. Okay, this guy has shown in the past to be really good in his submissions, but lately he's knocking people out. Why not give him a test?
Yeah.
With Marlon Vera, who's one of the most durable fighters in the whole division.
Exactly.
And see, can he put together a full 3-round performance? I'm sure he can, but I look forward to this fight for sure.
Outside of the main event, clearly I think that fight's going to be fight of the night if it lasts longer than a round. Yeah. But this one right here is going to be a fight that's slept on. It's not really getting talked about even throughout fight week. This is a low-key banger right here. I think it's going to be nonstop action on the feet, a lot of very good back-and-forth exchanges. Excited to see if Grant can rise to the occasion and if Vera can shut down the hype and get back to winning ways.
Douglas Lima, the Bellator fighter who had just lost his title, his brother steps into the octagon this Saturday, looking to avenge the Lima name right now. And he's a veteran, and he's going up against a true legend of the UFC, Matt Brown, OH, stand up.
IO, baby.
Is this fight going to be great? I think it's going to be sloppy fun. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Brown at this point, this guy just does not care.
No, not at all.
His fight with Miguel Baeza, as much as we love Baeza, Matt Brown brought it. He debatably won that first round before early in the second, elbows.
Yeah,
but Brown still he shows that, even though he'll end up getting, knocked out or losing the fight out in some fashion, he always shows these moments where it's like he turns back the clock.
Yeah.
In every fight. There's a moment where you're just like, that's the Matt Brown that nearly fought for a title back when Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks were kind of playing tug of war over the welterweight division.
Yep.
And to go up against Diego Lima, who, let's be honest, he's the less accomplished of these Lima brothers.
For sure.
But
former tough alumnus.
Yeah, a guy who in his really had to climb his way to being kind of relevant in the UFC. At one point in time, this guy's UFC record was 1-5.
Yeah.
And now I believe he's at 4-6. So kind of showing that he's steadily improving. But otherwise, I think this could be a really fun scrap. I wouldn't put much on it in terms of – I wouldn't put any money on this fight, first off, because I couldn't be super confident one way or another who's going to win this.
True.
And then two, I don't see a ton of technique being displayed here. I think you're going to see just kind of a wild scrap for as long as it goes.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be wild. Lima coming off that loss to Bilal Muhammad, and he kind of just got styled on in that one. To be fair, Muhammad looked incredible in that bout, but still, now going up against the veteran and Matt Brown, a good test here for Diego to see if he can compete with some of these legends of the fight game. For Matt Brown, this fight almost reminds me of the Olenek and Spivak fight, to be truthful. A super seasoned vet that's been there and done that against a younger guy. Yes, Lima, a little more experienced in the UFC than Spivak, but still, it's a huge test. A guy seemingly on his way out against Diego Lima here, who still has at least aspirations of top 15 run. So it definitely will be fun. Maybe not the most crisp and technical, as Noah mentioned, but it's going to be wild for however long it lasts.
I probably could have put "Let There Be Blood" as the headline for that one.
Sure.
Last one here, going to be a one maybe some people are surprised about if you look at the fight card. This is,
dare I say, Noah, chaotic.
oh, nice. Definitely chaotic. Low-key banger, as we
Yes.
like to throw around a lot. This one's buried on the prelims, though. Chaos Williams, who
Woo!
I thought everybody in the MMA community and in the UFC, I thought we were all on the same page. They're like, this guy's exciting. He's fun.
Put him on a main card.
Yeah. But apparently not, because this guy
Right.
gets buried against Matthew Semmelsberger, who also is coming off a 16-second knockout of Jason Witt. This fight should be quick. It should be violent. It should be powerful. I am looking very much forward to this. And I don't want to overstate, I guess, the power that these two guys have. I mean, it's there. But Chaos Williams showed in his fight with Michel Pereira. I know he lost that fight, but he showed a lot to me that he can really kind of hang in there for 3 rounds. And,
Oh, yeah.
it's not just power for this guy. He does have he's still improving, but he's got
athletic.
he's got a good skill set right now.
Yeah.
And Semmelsberger, I don't know as much about him, but that knockout over Jason Witt, very impressive. And, it's the right kind of matchup for these two power punchers that had very highlight reel level performances over the last year.
Mhm.
But it's so shocked that this is being buried on a main card when there's some fights on the undercard.
Yeah.
There's some fights on this main card we're not even talking about. And this one that's probably the third from the bottom gets billing here for us.
Yeah, I mean, poor Chaos, the guy loses to a very game opponent, by the way, Michel Pereira, and they bury him. That's crazy. Chaos had so much momentum before that fight. I still, the guy lost, but it was a decision. It was a really good 3-round fight. Let's not just do away with Chaos Williams. For God's sake, we call him Chaos. And for Semmelsberger, this is a very good test. 2 guys that are going to come in, stand and bang. Will it go 3 rounds? I have a hard time saying yes to that, but however long it lasts, this is a low-key banger, potential fight of the night here as well. Again, I know we're doing the breakdowns of these a little differently now starting today, but we always talk about, certain fights, no matter what the name value is, they can still deliver. That's what, especially like Vera and Grant, Chaos versus Matthew here. These are the type of fights we love.
Agreed. And I do want to make a note before we kind of wrap things up. I am siding with Dom. I think the main event will be the fight of the night. I just have a hard time seeing a finish.
Should it last
there.
long enough? Anyway.
Yeah, I don't really see there being a finish in that main event. I don't. And I think that kind of lends itself to be a showcase for both guys. And I'm hoping and praying we get a fight of the year type showing there.
If that goes 5 rounds, my body will not be ready. I can assure you that.
That's going to wrap it up here for our first ever weekend preview.
Yeah, that.
I say it like that, but I hope you guys can kind of see as we came along here. This is very much what it's going to be kind of like. We'll be doing a weekend recap on Monday. That'll be somewhat similar. Obviously, we won't be previewing fights besides.
Yeah, I was about to talk about this.
That sneaky PFL who decides to do their cards on Thursday, the same day we record our Friday episodes. So we will be doing PFL previews and recaps on Monday. So we'll be recapping Rory McDonald's fight and anything else that happens for the card that at this point you guys already know what's happened. But we'll recap it on Monday and preview the
PFL
following.
6.
Yeah. So that's what's coming up. And then obviously next week's a 2-episode week. So Friday will be another weekend preview. There's a Bellator card, UFC, Gan Volkov.
Yep.
Really good headliner there. So a lot to get into. Obviously, we talked about PFL on Monday.
And we're going to make these previews even better. Again, this came up last minute. But overall, in terms of longevity for the podcast, this is just a better step for us to take. I'm curious to see if you guys like this. Let us know what you think. Obviously, too, there's no Bellator this week, so we only went over UFC Vegas 29. But in a week where there's Bellator, maybe even a really good one fight, we'll discuss all of it and hit kind of all the major fights that stand out to us. Of course, like I said, no Bellator this week, so it was only UFC Vegas 29. But you guys get the gist. You'll get more comfortable. Come next week, it'll look a little bit more how we envision it in the future.
Yeah, give us your thoughts, whether you like this concept, whether you hate it, if there's things you want to see improved upon or changed.
Yeah, let us know.
It'd be nice to know. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but it'd be nice to get input, feedback,
Yep.
But till then, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Twitter, Instagram, at DCLE14. More importantly, you better get your asses over and follow the podcast at BAJ_MMA podcast.
And as for me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ntbaker_. If you go to my bio, there's a link to our link tree. It gives you everything from the social media for Below Average Joes to the links to the platforms we're on, like Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, YouTube channel links on there. So anywhere you want to watch us, you can. Just go to that link in my bio at ntbaker_ on Instagram and Twitter. But that's it. We're out. We'll see y'all on Monday.